still don't know why they were there in our area. I don't think they got a chance to even talk, say anything. They're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they know they're supposed to come in our area. But we're six of them. I have for days, man, of just the murders, just the senseless murders. On top of that, not just. But I got a story that man, it just to this day I still cringe when I think about it. So we had a bomb expert that was with us. He was literally like a Mexican MacGyver, if you want to call it. Make a bomb out of anything. This guy was a mad genius. And some of the shit he came up with. We went down to La Sinaloa. We went down. And this guy did us dirty, stole from us. I remember going to his house. He lived in the country, farmland. He had a nice ranch. We got tipped off that his wife and kids we're gonna be out going to her mother's house for the weekend. So that was the best time for us to do what we had to do. Again, we had a bomb expert. And he made bombs out of everything. So he ended up making these bombs with these detonators. They had like these dynamite sticks all over on them. With some wires, some liquid. And he was in the house, but he had his soldiers there guarding him. Well, we have military trained guys on our team. They took him out silently to where he wouldn't even know it was gone. Go in there and with a big bunch of K-bars, didn't even use bullets. And then just start cutting all these dudes up, killing them, slicing their necks, stabbing them in the heart, cutting their stomachs out, their guts hanging out. We got him without even the guy even noticing. He had about 6 guards on the outside. We got them all. Knew he was inside still with who he thought was two more guards that he had. All in all, it ended up being 3 guards inside and him. He blew his shit up. We ended up finding out that the wife and kids did come back early from her mom.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what kind of got me, man. I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want innocent people, dead.
Why the fuck do you?
But we got who we had to get. And we gained respect. That's how we gain respect. Just don't double cross us. That's all we ask. You do what you gotta do. Said, man, I'm stuck in this cycle, man. I really am. And there's just no way of me getting out. Like I said, man, I would do anything to have a different life, though. Anything. Like I said, man, movies glorify us. Oh man, these guys. Some of these people think that we're cool. I don't know, man.
I'm serious, though.
Is killing people cool though? Really? Like, yeah, I mean. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it. Just put it that way. I just wouldn't do it, man. I want to have my own normal life. And I still wake up with night sweats, panic attacks, anxiety from all the horror I saw. Still affects me today. I may still have some money. But to me, it just wasn't worth it, man.
Carlos, thank you very much. Even though Software Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project for me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Software Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my god.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
The book includes multi-page spreads of both Rebecca and the Whitaker family. I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out, so once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.
Order now, the two women. Order now, the two women who were killed and found dismembered in Juarez on Sunday were from El Paso.
On the southern border, there is a legal concept known as reasonable fear, a lifeline for those fleeing violence.
A Texas couple was found tortured and murdered.
Police say so far this month, 11 women have been killed in Juarez.
And then their body part offered up to Santa Muerte as an offering to represent death.
In this special Borderland docuseries, I take a deep dive onto true crime stories. Join me as we uncover the truth about the fear behind the crisis.
This was a group of powerful people.
Never been seen before in Mexico.
Evidence of ritualistic elements.
We ended up rescuing almost 200 kids.
To the discovery of multiple women in masquerade.
Those in every state. When you put it together, you have an economic extortion map,
but even more violent.
The biggest money launderers in the world right now in drugs, in this side of the world, Chinese organized criminal groups working for the cartels. Okay? So the days of just being suppliers of precursor chemicals, yes, they do that at scale. But now they are more and more the biggest money launderers in the world.
The opinions of the guests and host are their own and do not represent the opinions of Ironclad, the Border Patrol, or the Department of Homeland Security.
We cut through the partisan talking points. We're not interested in perpetuating fear. We're interested in seeking truth, hearing what's really going on America's border. Welcome to Borderland in the Ironclad region. My next guest is Ray Donovan, a retired DEA agent whose last position was the chief of operations. He has extensive knowledge on China's connection to the Mexican cartels and their smuggling network. I'm excited for you guys to hear this one. Well, Ray, thank you so much for joining us on the Borderland podcast. I'm excited about this because of the article that I got to read, but as well as your current kind of like expertise in the China smuggling situation. We've had several podcasts with experts that kind of touch on that, but I think today I'm really excited about learning more. If you wouldn't mind for our audience, give a brief bio of yourself.
Sure. So, April of 23, I retired as the Chief of Operations for the DEA. And before that, I was the Special Agent in charge for New York City, New York State. Before that, I was the Special Agent in charge of the Special Operations Division. And before that, I was in the SOD, the Special Ops Division, really just coordinating global investigations on international, transnational criminal groups. Before that, I spent 15 years in the New York Drug Enforcement Task Force, where I honed my skill and became an expert at going after Mexican cartels.
Hey, one of the things I have to mention here is that you led the 2015 operation to apprehend El Chapo. Is that correct?
Yeah, I always say this about El Chapo, that it was a team effort. And so it was a group of people from various agencies that came together and really put our egos aside and decided to share all of our intelligence. And we managed, after about 2 years of work, we managed to, identify Chapo's inner circle, eventually leading to his capture. And then once he escaped in July of 2015, we put that team back together. And within 6 weeks, we were tracking him again in Mexico, working very closely with the Mexican Marines. And in fact, the second capture, I say it was done primarily by the Mexican Marines. They got very skilled at becoming an investigative force, not just military force. And it was actually their strategy to push him down from the mountains of Sinaloa into Los Mochis. And so credit is due to many agencies, both in Mexico and the United States, and a lot of hard work over a 4-year period of time.
It's an incredible case, and it's such a huge impact in the cartels when that happened. Obviously, just recently, El Maya was also, I don't know how to say whether he was captured or he turned himself in. There's a lot of confusion on how that goes, but that's another significant case that has kind of disrupted or also caused a rift in the cartel systems down in Mexico. But the biggest focus I wanted to kind of hit today is we've had other experts talk about that, but for me, it's like the relationship between Mexico and China and how that started.
Right.
Knowing how that started, and then we can get into all the other pieces, but how did that, do you know how that got initiated originally?
Yeah, so you got to understand something that's about like Chinese organized crime and their role in drug trafficking. They are way upstream, right? So obviously the chemical production is a big deal. And when in regards to Mexico, you got to go back to the 90s, even before that, when methamphetamine started getting manufactured in Mexico. So all those chemicals for meth so they had a foothold early on in Mexico, supplying the pseudoephedra, the monomethylamines, and methylamines, the precursors to produce methamphetamine. But it didn't create the same wave that fentanyl did when fentanyl hit the United States. It changed and transformed the market in the United States. Prior to that, the market was really driven by gangs, biker gangs, and methamphetamine lords. Once the Mexican cartel started mass producing super labs of methamphetamine, it really changed meth production all throughout the Western Hemisphere, in particular Mexico and the United States. So the Chinese had a foothold from that being the suppliers early on, right? So going back into late 80s, 90s.
How, I guess the next thing is kind of this. When we discuss China and China's involvement in the smuggling, and the exploitation of American borders, to what extent is this strategy potentially the Chinese government themselves, or is this kind of rogue elements in the Chinese government or a criminal organization? Because I think there's a confusion there. When you say China, people think the Chinese government is planning this strategy. Is it, or is it organizations that are doing it?
I think it's a combination of both. And I'll explain what I mean.
Damn, it just
So
feels
there are chemical companies that are owned by the
it's
PRC,
dread.
right? Literally, they are owned by the PRC, and they are exporting large quantities of not only precursor chemicals for fentanyl and meth production, but also pure fentanyl to the United States and to Mexico for transport into the United States. The PRC, there's about 160,000, this is a State Department number, 160,000 chemical companies throughout China. It's one of the most unregulated industries in China, and there's literally tens of thousands of sub-brokers in China, right? So you can have a massive production plant and have hundreds of brokers that are buying chemicals from that plant or that company and then brokering deals back into the United States and back into Mexico as well. So it is a combination of both things, right? So we have seen where you have CCP that they sit on executive boards of some of these really prolific chemical companies that are just sending many, not just fentanyl, but many Schedule 1 drugs into the Western Hemisphere, in particular the United States. We've seen PRC and CCP would give grants and give other award money to chemical companies. The biggest factor, the number one factor in all of this is that we know that the PRC and CCP gives tax rebates to chemical companies to export fentanyl derivatives up to 13%. So when you say, is this a government thing versus a criminal element within China? It's really both, right? It's really both, right? And let me elaborate on that a little bit more. When COVID hit in 2020 or early 2020, and Wuhan was locked down in China, we saw an immediate impact here in Mexico and the United States. So the drugs were starting to get stockpiled, movement and flow, logistics slowed down, and the prices of illicit drugs were going up everywhere nationally. So we know that the production of fentanyl in China is a direct correlation to trafficking and distribution in the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting to know that the Chinese government definitely knows that there is, or almost knows and in support of this illicit drug being transferred over to Mexico, or even, it kind of goes to show it's almost an idea or a strategy of weakening our own government.
I think it's a combination, and I'll explain this too. There's so much revenue. There's so much revenue. You look at the Chinese government right now. I'm not an expert on their economy, but by no means. But I'll say this: we know that exports, production is the key staple to the Chinese economy, and one of their biggest exports, and they really lead the world in this, is chemicals. And so, the more they are exporting, the more revenue they're generating for China. So there's that piece of it too, right? Does it undermine our society? Yes. Right? Does it disrupt our own economy through black market currency and moving dark money? Absolutely, it does. I do think it's a combination.
Yeah, it also almost weakens us internally by creating more addicts and also losing lives to fentanyl. One of the questions I asked my last guest was, what is China, China and Mexico, the relationship between each other, what do they get out of it? Does China get to destabilize America slowly, the cartel makes money, or is there a more layered and nuanced approach to what they're doing?
Well, I think there is. I mean, if you look at Mexico has a role to play in the drug trafficking, right? Yeah. Yes, I think we are focused on China production, but, I don't know if you know this, but I testified before Congress back in April of this year, and I laid laid out 5 areas that are really kind of areas to focus in on. Production in China being one of them. The open ports in Mexico, right? The seaports, Mazatlán, Veracruz, Manzanillo, the labs, the clandestine labs that are really throughout Mexico. Obviously, border, and then I talked about social media platforms. So there's key areas where not only Mexico or China, but the United States, in particular, in regards to social media platforms, right? We know that is now the vehicle for distribution nationally, right?
Really?
So, yes.
Which platforms are those? I'm sorry.
Snapchat, Instagram, or Facebook, like you name it. We see distribution taking place on encrypted applications like Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp. We see funding mechanisms like Cash App, Zelle, Venmo being utilized. So the drug trafficking and distribution has evolved too. So our role as Americans, we need to do something about that to safeguard all the people that are succumbing to drug overdoses and poison. The other area is the border. And the cartels take full advantage of the border, right? So group goes here, they'll sell drugs the other way, where they'll build tons. Distract and overcome, that's what they do, and they'll just keep on pushing it. Now, they also push a lot of drugs directly through the ports of entry. And CBP does a fantastic job to the degree that they can, but it's never ending. It's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Right? There are ideas for solutions going forward. But I think America has to pivot and take a real serious look at who's involved, who's really upstream, that's really the puppet masters pulling the strings in regards to the entire drug trafficking or illicit drug trafficking industry.
When you say upstream, can you elaborate on that, please?
So we in law enforcement, my prior career, we are very focused on networks that are selling drugs.
Nigga, you still staying in the building?
The funds from that. We're very focused on what's in front of us.
They kick your black ass out?
DEA, FBI, HSI, Marshals, ATF, very focused on going after the cartels in Mexico. Go after Chapo, go after Mayo, go after Chapito, go after Mencho. But who's really behind them, allowing them to exist, right? So you have, one of the issues in Mexico is corruption at the local level, at the state level, at the national level. And so that's what I'm referring to, right? So there's that piece that's never been addressed. My hope is that the new president will do that, Sheinbaum. But you never know. And in regards to China, it's similarly, what's the real issue behind why China? China in May of 2019, Vince, they regulated all variations of fentanyl, but yet they still are subsidizing up to 13% tax rebates to their own companies to export fentanyl into Mexico and the United States. So on one hand, public, they're saying, look, we're controlling fentanyl. On the other hand, they're giving tax rebates to thousands of companies to export it.
It's fascinating.
Right.
Officials are warning of a widespread cybersecurity attack